Reasons why Dr. Jose Rizal wrote the Noli Me Tangere. Jose Rizal composed the Noli Me Tangere to support the Indios. Rizal was studying for medicine. While in Germany, Rizal composed the second 50% of Noli Me Tangere every now and then in the beginning of February 21, 1887. After he read the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, he had the motivation to compose his own novel with a similar subject to uncover Spanish frontier maltreatment on paper. His novel shows that his main character in Noli Me Tangere, which is Crisostomo Ibarra, was educated in Spain, and he came home wanting to establish a school for children where they can learn to read and write in Spanish. And as you can see, public education was allowed by the colonial administration in the 1860s. And even then, children learned by rote and learned only from catechism, and in short, the public education system was meant only to create submissive and complaint colonial subjects. Reasons why Dr. Jose Rizal wrote the El Filibusterismo. El Filibusterismo was written in commitment to the three martyred clerics, Mariana Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, or the so-called Gomburza, whose passing left a permanent imprint to him. Like Noli Me Tangere, El Fili targets illuminating the general public at carrying the Filipinos nearer to reality. These are the two purposes of Rizal's El Filibusterismo. Number 1, to defend Filipinos people from foreign accusations of foolishness and lack of knowledge, and the number 2, to show how the Filipinos people lived during Spanish colonial period and the cries and woes of his countrymen against abusive officials. Just to sum up everything, the reasons why Dr. Jose Rizal wrote Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo are for freedom. And yes, you heard me right, and you see it right, and as a propagandist, Jose Rizal published these books as an instrument against the Spanish authorities, as well as to ignite the long-lost hearts of his fellow countrymen to stand up against the Spanish foes, leading them towards freedom. Within those books, shows about the theme where it highlights the tyranny and the lives of the helpless citizens of the Philippines. And these books reveal the true colors of these Spaniards. Rizal took a hard time into making these books, but in the end, his efforts paid off and saved all Filipinos, leading them to freedom, but at a cost for his life.
Okay, now let's talk about the summary of Noli Me Tangere. So written in Spanish and published in 1887, Jose Rizal's Noli Me Tangere, or Touch Me Not, played a crucial role in the political history of the Philippines. So drawing from experience, the conventions of the 19th century novel, and the ideals of European liberalism, Rizal offered up a devastating critique of a society under Spanish colonial rule. So, the story of Noli begins in the Philippines when Capitan Tiago, a wealthy socialite, holds a dinner party to welcome Juan Crisostomo Ibarra back to the Philippines. So Ibarra, a native mestizo, has spent the past 7 years studying in Europe. So during dinner, Ibarra learns his father, Don Rafael, died recently of unknown causes. Ibarra is berated by Father Damaso for learning abroad what he could have learned at home. Ibarra holds his tongue and leaves the party to visit his fiancée, Maria Clara, which is Capitan Tiago's daughter. En route, Ibarra chats with civil guard Senor Guevara, who explained that his father died in jail after being imprisoned for accidentally killing a tax collector who was abusing a boy in the street. Ibarra travels to his hometown San Diego, accompanied by his fiancée Maria Clara. A large All Souls Day festival is held commemorating purgatorial souls, which Ibarra finds immoral due to profiting on people's pain. Then Ibarra finds the increased influence of the Catholic Church troubling. Father Salvi is an example of the corruption, using his religious post to find people who don't attend church. Ibarra learns from a schoolmaster of Father Damaso's curricular meddling. Damaso insists on teachers beating children as discipline and bans teaching Spanish in favor of the native Philippine language Tagalog. As alternative, Ibarra plans to build secular school like the one Rafael always wished for. Ibarra consult with church and government official, fully intending to ignore their influence once the school's built. Ibarra visits the Catholic cemetery and learns Damaso had Raphael body exhumed, which has been dumped in a lake. So during the fiesta, Ibarra and local officials celebrate the opening of the new school. So as Damaso blesses the building with a sermon, the mysterious Elias arrives. Ibarra once saved Elias' life during a fishing expedition. Elias informs Ibarra that the others plan to kill Ibarra during the school's christening. Ibarra disbelieves, but when a large boulder comes rolling at him as Elias suggested, Elias shoves the man responsible in the way. The man dies, saving Ibarra's life. The festival continues, but Ibarra is now aware of his foes.
This is the continuation of the summary of Noli Me Tangere. So at a dinner celebration held by Ibarra that night, Father Damaso arrives uninvited and begins insulting the new school and his father's death. So, dahil doon, syempre nagalit si Ibarra and gusto niyang patayin si Father Damaso. So, kumuha siya ng knife and sasaksakin niya na sana si Father Damaso, kundi lang siya napigilan ni Maria Clara. So, afterwards, Ibarra is excommunicated. So, dahil doon, Don Tiago cancels the wedding of Ibarra and Maria Clara and he arranged his daughter to the Spaniard Linares. So, the Captain General visits San Diego from Spain. And since yung Captain General kasi he supports Ibarra's school project, he refuses punishment and leaves the excommunication. But Father Salvi hires Lucas to frame Ibarra. Salvi is in love with Maria Clara and he orchestrates an attack on the military barracks that he blames on Ibarra. Salvi intends to take credit for saving the town from the attack he secretly started. So following the siege, Ibarra is arrested as planned. He's jailed and found guilty based on a vague letter he wrote to Maria Clara. And then, nung time na yon, bumalik si Elias, nagplano siya na itakas si Ibarra. And yun nga, tinakas niya. And before sila umalis doon, is nakita muna si Ibarra tsaka si Maria Clara. And doon, in-explain ni Maria Clara na she was just blackmailed into releasing the letter which led to Ibarra's imprisonment. Kasi daw, may nagsabi sa kanyang isang lalaki that her real father is Damaso, not Don Tiago. So Maria Clara turned over the letter in order to keep this a secret from Don Tiago and to honor her deceased mother. So Maria Clara expressed deep regrets for her betrayal and reinforces her undying love for Ibarra. So ayun na, nagpaalam na sila. So, habang nagka-travel sila, syempre tumakas lang sila nun, may humabol sa kanilang mga lalaki. Kasi nga, nakulong si Ibarra. So, hinabol nila sila. And then, ang ginawa ni Elias is, tumalon na lang siya sa boat para ma-distract yung mga umahabol. So, inakala nila na si Ibarra yung tumalon. So, bago sila magkahiwalay, sabi ni Elias is magkita sila sa San Diego. after nun, yan, pag nakatakas sila, magkita sila doon. Na magkita sila sa Christmas Eve. So, in San Diego, Maria Clara tells Damaso she cannot marry Linares because she's not in love with him. Maria Clara cites a newspaper falsely claiming Ibarra's death as the reason she no longer wishes to live and joins a convention as a result. So, akala niya kasi namatay na si Ibarra, pero ang totoo, di ba nga si Elias, tumalon siya dun sa bangka para lituhin yung mga umahabol. And then, binalil kasi nila yon si Elias. So, akala nila si Ibarra yon. So, nung time na yon, akala nila patay na si Ibarra. And then, nung Christmas Eve na, pumunta doon si Elias kung saan sinabi niya na makita sila ni Ibarra, pero hindi sumipot si Ibarra. And, ayun na. Elias is wounded and tells the young Basilio that he is about to die. Elias asks Basilio to burn his corpse along with Basilio's mother, Cisas, on a fire. As Elias looks up to the sky dying, he utters, "I die without seeing dawn's light shining on my country. You, who will see it, welcome it for me. Don't forget those who fell during the night time." So Ibarra's fate remains a mystery.
Summary of the El Filibusterismo. This novel, the El Filibusterismo, is a sequel to Jose Rizal's Noli Me Tangere, and this book is known in English by the title The Reign of Greed. Just a quick background, this second novel, El Fili, was published in 1891, a fiction that was written in Spanish. The protagonist of this novel is a jeweler named Simon. He is the new identity of Crisostomo Ibarra, who, in the prologue Noli, escaped pursuing soldiers. Simon, after many years, took his wealth and returns to the Philippines, where he is able to move around freely. He was a powerful figure not only because of his wealth, but also because he's a good friend and advisor of the Governor General. Simon's two obsessions are to rescue his paramour or concubine, Maria Clara, from the nunnery of Santa Clara, and secondly, to incite a Philippine revolution against Spain. So, even though he is a friend of Spain, secretly he was plotting a terrible revenge against the Spanish authorities. This novel begins on board a steamer ship sailing up the Pasig River from Manila to Laguna de Bay. The ship is separated into two decks, showing social status back then. The top consists of the Spanish rich and their confidence. The bottom consists of the Indios or natives and poor Chinamen. There were passengers on board the ship such as Ibarra, who is known as Simon, the jeweler and protagonist of this novel, Donna Victorina, a pro-Spanish native woman going to Laguna in search of her hand-packed husband, Paulita Gomez, the beautiful niece of Victorina, Ben Zabe, a Spanish journalist, the Padres, Sibla, Camora, Slavi, Florentino, and Irene, Don Custodio, a pro-Spanish Filipino who holds a government position, Isagani, the poet and nephew of Father Florentino and lover of Paulita, and Basilio, son of Cesar and medical student whose education was financed by his patron, Captain Tiago. Simon uses his wealth and political influence to encourage corruption in the government, promotes the oppression of the masses, and to hasten the moral degradation of the country. He did this so the people may become desperate and fight. He plays himself as an agitator and saboteur by siding with the Spanish but silently encouraging the masses, which would serve for revolution. In the meantime, Basilio, the son of Cesar and the medical student, was pledged to Julie, the daughter of Cabezang Tales, the farmer whose land was taken away from him by the friars. Basilio was one of the students accused and incarcerated of being behind the flyers that called for rebellion against the state. Then Captain Tiago, who financed Basilio's medical studies, dies of a drug overdose while attended to by Father Irene. So Basilio was given inadequate inheritance, and all the incarcerated students were released except for him. Julie, the farmer's daughter, then approaches Father Camorra to request for Basilio's release. Unfortunately, the friar attempts to rape her, but she commits suicide rather than submit to his lustful schemes. Basilio later became Simone's confidential associate in his later plot after he was finally released from prison and hearing about Julie's death. As a wealthy man, Simone smuggles firearms into the country through Quiroga, a rich Chinese merchant who aspires to be Chinese consul of Manila. Simone's first deal to begin the firearms uprising did not happen, as he heard of the sad news that Maria Clara died. Simone had a bereaved moment after he heard the news that Maria Clara died in the nunnery, so after a long time of illness brought about this bitter loss of Maria, he perfects his plan to overthrowing the government. On the wedding night of Paulita Gomez and Juanito Pelaez, Simone gives a wedding gift to them, which is a beautiful lamb. By this time, his confidential associate, Basilio, joined his revolutionary cause and knows of his plans. The plan was that when the wick of his lamp burns lower, the nitroglycerin, which is hidden in its secret compartment, will explode. It will destroy the house, killing everyone, including the Governor General, the friars, and the government officials present at the wedding. This explosion would act as a signal for the other protesters to start the general revolt in Manila, thus making the start of Philippine Revolution. Now, remember Isagani, the nephew of Father Florentino and once lover of Paulita Gomez? He was also there at the wedding feast outside, sorrowfully watching the merrymaking of the wedding feast inside the house. While standing outside, Basilio, his friend, came and warned him to go away because the lighted lamp will explode soon. Upon hearing this horrible secret of the lamp, Isagani realizes that his beloved Paulita is in real danger. So, to save her life, even though Paulita broke off her relationship with him, Isagani rushes into the house, seizes the lighted lamp, and tosses it into the river where it explodes. So, the revolutionary plot by Simone was discovered. He then escapes, carrying his treasure chest, and mortally wounded, he seeks refuge in the home of Padre Florentino, for he was cornered by the soldiers. While at the home of Father Florentino, the Spanish authorities learns of his whereabouts, that the Lieutenant Perez of the Guardia Civil informs Father Florentino that he will be there at his place at 8 o'clock to arrest Simone at night. So Simone took poison to avoid this arrest. He then confesses to Father Florentino as he was dying, revealing his true identity, confessing of his shameful plan to use his wealth to avenge himself and his evil aim to destroy his friends and enemies. That night, the confession by the dying Simone was a long and painful one. So, Father Florentino consoles Simone by saying that God will forgive him. God knows his imperfection and seeing how he has suffered, that ordaining the chastisement of his faults has come as death from the very ones he have instigated to crime. Towards the end, as Simone dies peacefully, Father Florentino falls upon his knees and prays for Simone, the dead jeweler.
Good day, everyone. As part of our report today, we will be talking about relevance of Rizal's novels in the lives and society today. First is religion. Discuss what religion and belief can really do to everyday lives. We all know that religion has a big impact to the lives of the Filipino before and today. Religion is the one way that we're able to cope in every situation we have right now. Rizal wasn't against the religion. We all know that he himself was found and grown in this belief. What just Rizal want to impose is that making advantage of someone's belief is not right. One example is the Bible teaches us to give back to the Lord a portion of the blessings that we receive in any form we can. But the people who has greed at the back of their mind try to twist it, which is still happening in some of the religious denominations today. Many religious sects was shut and members are hating each other because of money and power by gaining a position in the church. Second is colonialism and power, the cries and woes of our countrymen. Even though we claim our freedom from the colonizers, unconsciously, our minds are still colonized by the thought that we are weak and disconnected from each other. During the colonizing era, Filipinos suffered from the abuse of the colonizers. And even though we see it clearly, we are afraid to speak up because we thought that how can a single voice can be heard by many? Another reason is we have different ideas and concepts that we can't agree on. This is also one of the reasons why the propaganda movement has weakened. Same as today, in this pandemic, many people suffered from the disease, from hunger, poverty, unemployment, and many more. Other people are trying to think of another way how can they help. And one example is the community pantry. It's a great idea, wasn't it? But how come some of the people also trying to disagree with it? They think that it's not safe or could be a way to start a rebel group, or people who built this pantry only wants to gain fame and power or make names. Seeing the leader and the Filipino people supposed to be the supporters of unity has this kind of ill traits makes us put in chaos and divided in many ways. The third one is reform and education, defending Filipino people from foreign accusations of foolishness and lack of knowledge. In the Philippine history, there are many individuals who gathered and started a propaganda movement. Reform means to make changes in order to improve it. Filipino reformists aim to improve the quality of governance we have in the Philippines during the Spanish colonization. They are pushing to be province of Spain, not a colony. They want is a dismissal of the friars and to have a free speech and the right to educate. Now, what I want to emphasize here is the word reform and what its relation with education. These friars look the Filipino people as foolish because they lack of knowledge. In my opinion, Rizal acknowledged that there are great benefits we receive from the Spanish people, but the racial discrimination was so intense that they even rank us as the lowest group in their social class. Rizal wrote his two novels to awaken the Spanish authorities about the condition of the Philippines. He wants to remind us that our race is not insignificant. We have brilliant minds. It's just that we are suppressed to speak. Reformation intends to improve the system, the educational system. Example of these are the Filipino researcher and self-support inventors. They are trying to contribute their knowledge and theories to the development of our country's science and technology. But the officials and other people who's in the position are somehow look at it as unreliable and lack of proof because it wasn't studied in other countries. If this is our standard when it comes to education, then maybe they are right. We are foolish for not supporting, and we lack of knowledge for discarding our own intelligence. Next one is government and the people. Exposing cruelties, graft, and corruption and showing the wrongdoings of Filipinos that led to further failure. Reading the writings of Rizal give us the vision of how was the country in his time, mirroring what we have right now. What stated a while ago is not a conspiracy. Everyone knows about it. The people abusing their authority and power by means of cruelty and killings. Corruption and injustice is so rampant that even though the facts are so obvious, the people involved in it still able to get away from their crimes. The citizens are so enraged to the current administration because of its failing act towards our sovereignty and response to the pandemic. When we spot a chance to blame others, we will not hesitate ourselves to blame it. Why? Because it is our nature to reject our own wrongdoings. Yes, the people who's in the position has a big role and liabilities. But if we are going to use our critical thinking, don't we think that we also have the responsibility? People are the one who put them at the highest peak, but also the one who drag them into their grave. When we fail to aware and educate ourselves about the person's action, it will only lead us to failure. Voting and electing people is our right. We should not let them influence us with money or power. We should not be careless in our own actions. We have to remember that one wrong decision could lead us to further failure. What I have discussed are all based in my personal opinion, and I'm trying my best to objectify everything what I have said. We could also apply Rizal's novels to remind ourselves that what have done in the past shouldn't be repeated today. Reminding ourselves that there is a consequence to every action, and using revenge as motivation was not always the best choice. Dr. Jose Rizal's novel serves as a charter of nationalism. It's a way of recovering our self-confidence to appreciate one's worth, paving the path to return the heritage of our ancestors, asserting ourselves as equal with the foreign people, insisting the need of education to dedicate ourselves for the country. Rizal wasn't against to the idea in absorbing the aspects of foreign cultures because he believed that it would enhance our native traditions. The freedom that we are experiencing today doesn't came from a single snap. It took a lot of efforts to attain. That is why in return, we are also expected to exert a lot of effort to maintain it. We don't intend to impose the ideas and opinions we shared, but at least have a deep thought and take what you think for yourself is making sense.